I'm Yuri. I'm a mathematician, so most of the stuff I write I didn't think was like a great fit for Open Book, but I recently started more of a research diary, and where instead of trying to explain the math I'm doing, I just wanted to talk about the process of math research and how fraught with bafflement that is. So some of this is reconstructed. So June 7th, 2023. This week, I've been stuck trying to prove something that I left till the last stages of writing my paper because I thought it would be very quick to do, and it is turning out to be extremely difficult. Roughly speaking, I kind of have these two axes, and I have something that kind of pulls you towards the x-axis, and I need to show that, although it pulls you closer to here, it can never pull you... Sorry, yes. It can never pull you into here if you're not already there. And the reason I'm trying to do this is there's some objects called prisms that were invented in 2019 have been pretty revolutionary. So there were lots of problems that were considered untouchable for decades that have all been solved in the past just few years, just coming from the circle of ideas. So I'm developing a kind of different perspective on prisms that somehow related to rotational symmetries of a circle. In order to justify that my perspective is reasonable, I have to show that various sort of prisms on this x-axis are called crystalline things. I need to sort of say how to see those in sort of my point of view. And I have a natural candidate for that, but it actually turns out to correspond to things whose twist ends up on the x-axis. And so I have to say that that's the same as just being there. So for comparison, I didn't have anything to correspond to this y-axis called transversal things, and so I had to invent something new to correspond to this, and that actually turned out to be something very fundamental that massively simplified a whole bunch of things. So it was a good thing to do. Okay, so anyway, I've been trying and failing to do this for several days. So I messaged Ben on Discord. Ben's a prof at Northwestern, and so he suggested I first try to make this work for the things on this y-axis, and then extend from there. So that's a pretty standard technique. Often you can use these transversal guys to control everything else. But that will just never work in this case, more or less, because the only thing that's on both the x and the y is 0, and that's boring. So I was like, no, that'll never work. And he was like, oh, duh, sorry. And I was like, no, I totally tried the same thing, and then realized that was nonsense. So there's a prime number involved in all of this, and I managed to make it work for the prime 2. And there's a bunch of stuff in our area that works for every prime number except for 2. So I was like, maybe I could use that. But a lot of that stuff goes way over my head, so I spent some time trying to understand it. Okay, so Thursday, June 8th, 2023. The thing I am trying to prove is obviously false. One of the most basic examples of a prism is a counterexample. Jesus, I'm dumb. So, if the answer is not what I thought it was going to be, then what is the answer? That suddenly becomes a lot more interesting. It's interesting, but it's also a lot more work, and I just want this fucking paper to be done. Wait a minute. Actually, maybe this isn't a counterexample. So in my world, there's these static things and animated things. And this counterexample is the standard example of an animated prism, but the thing I'm trying to do is really only about static things. So yeah, so I do some Googling, and actually, this thing will never be static. So we're back in business. And Friday, June 9th. Success. Proved what I wanted. So it was a little bit subtle. It seemed like you could do this kind of either of two ways, but actually one way was slightly better than the other, and that's what I needed. So I excitedly messaged Noah on Discord. Noah's Ben's postdoc, and was like, okay, you do this and this and this, and after sufficiently many shenanigans, you get what you want. And Noah was like, I'm not seeing the shenanigans. I was like, yeah, it's a little bit delicate. I'll explain it later. No, it was time to celebrate. So Friday night's board game night. So headed over Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture. My team won at Secret Hitler. Go fascists! And then at midnight, we went to Union Hall for karaoke. So I got home at 3:30 in the morning. So did not get back to Noah that night. Saturday, June 10th. So I woke up around, 3 or 4 p.m. I started writing up the proof to send to Noah. And the thing where it seemed like you should be able to sort of come at this from either of two directions, but only one of them worked. Yeah, it actually just didn't work. I had gotten so stuck caught up in like what I was doing, I had basically just ended up making a circular argument. So there's no happy ending to this story. I put out the paper in September and I just left it a conjecture. I don't know.